My name is Cindy Blackstock. I'm the Executive Director of the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society. I'm also an Associate Professor at the University of Alberta. I live here in Ottawa, and my home is the Gitxsan Nation in British Columbia. And I also live on Air Canada and on a variety of other airlines across the country as I visit Indigenous communities, not only here in Canada, but occasionally around the world as well. I think that we've done something a lot of people won't do, and that is take the government to court. We believe very strongly that you sit down with government, you talk to them, you work jointly on solutions. It's not just about criticizing them on problems. You got to get in there and make sure you have an evidence-informed solution. But if they don't do it, you got to sit back and ask yourself, how long can a child wait? In 2007, we filed a human rights complaint against the Canadian government, alleging that they're racially discriminating against First Nations children by providing flawed and inequitable child welfare services throughout the country. The Canadian government would go on to spend $3 million and countless human hours trying to derail it on technicalities, but thankfully they failed. And on February 25th of this year, I walked into the tribunal room and I was the first witness. But I was not the first one speaking of these issues. And so those hearings are still underway and will likely conclude in 2014. The tribunal has the authority to make a binding legal decision about whether discrimination has happened. And most importantly to me, order the government of Canada to do the right thing for kids. And when people talk about the case, they say, well, what shocks you the most about this case? And I think what shocks me the most is that it's even necessary. I mean, I don't even understand, even after all these years, why we have to fight to get the Canadian government to treat First Nations children in equitable and respectful ways. Well, my mother was non-Aboriginal, my father was First Nations. And so I grew up in this kind of bicultural world. What I saw was a lot of judgment. I saw a lot of being treated differently if you were First Nations. And so it was just this whole world of trying to find out what you did that was so wrong, why people didn't like you for who you were, why they didn't like the people, your family. Like, what did we do? I didn't understand it. And the reality is most Canadians don't understand it either. They continue to believe that First Nations people get more than all other Canadians, instead of looking at these issues as being ones of fundamental injustice. We don't choose to be poor. We don't choose to grow up and not have a job. But when your government gives you less money for education, puts you in deplorable schools that the parliamentary budget officers reviewed, then what would you expect would happen to those children? With every generation of children comes a chance to create a Canada anew. A chance to create a First Nations community anew, one that represents the ancestors' dreams of that community. And to be even a small part of that, in the company of other women, men, children, young people across the country, is an absolute blessing and honor.